The national media must be putting melatonin in their water because they're sleeping on Bryce Young in 2025, and that is Cody Benjamin of CBS Sports has Bryce Young on bust alert. 9 NFL players who are running out of time to prove themselves entering the 2025 season. Cody Benjamin says Bryce Young is on bust alert. Can he be more than just serviceable? He's barely completed 60% of his throws after almost 30 starts, writes Cody Benjamin. I'm not that low on Bryce Young personally, but it's fair to ask the question, is too much hitched on Bryce Young in 2025? Ron Rivera said it. 55% of success in the NFL relates to the quarterback. It relates to the quarterback. It all has to do with the quarterback. That's why it's important for Bryce Young to take a step forward. I think even more so in 2025, where they've built this thing around the quarterback. Dave Canales, Dan Morgan, their job security is based on Bryce Young's success, and that's why they're building around him. They're bringing in Tetero and McMillan. They're stabilizing the offensive line between this year and last year. They're making every effort they can to optimize the success of their quarterback so he could optimize the success of the franchise. Not all NFL analysts at the national level are low on the Panthers. Kevin Patra of NFL.com. Headline, Chuba Hubbard, Panthers are sick and tired of losing. Patra writes, if quarterback Bryce Young continues to improve under Canales, as he did midway through last season, the offense takes another stride forward, and the defense turns a corner after last year's struggles, the Panthers can certainly contend for the NFC South. I think this is the barometer. So you have Pat McAfee, who's high on the Panthers. You have certain analysts who are high on the team, talking about Panthers could even be the favorite, some people are saying, for the NFC South. And then you have people like Cody Benjamin saying that, asking could Bryce Young even be serviceable in 2025? And then there's like the middle ground, which is Kevin Patra, which is, can the defense take a step forward? Can Bryce Young build off the success of last season? He's not on bust alert, but he's a guy who is going to need to continue to stride forward. And there are questions about this team. There are questions about the quarterback. We're not going to take a small sample size and say Bryce Young is Tom Brady. We're not doing that thing. And we're not going to overrate some of these young talents coming in the league. We're going to see if they're proven commodities. We're going to see if this defense gels. We're going to see if the Panthers can take a step forward, and then we'll make the final judgment. That's where I think most people are. I'm a little more optimistic than that. I have a lot of faith in Bryce Young. I would be surprised if Bryce Young isn't what he was late last season. Isn't taking the Chiefs and the Eagles down to the wire. Isn't playing competitive football. I would be surprised if that's not the case with Bryce Young. I think he is a guy maybe doesn't deserve to have the brightest outlook. I mean, there's a small sample size again, but I think most people in Carolina who are close to the team have a bright outlook for the Panthers quarterback. He's not on bust alert per CBS. I don't think most people agree with that assessment. The dreams of the Carolina Panthers landing free agent Jaire Alexander are over, and they were equally short-lived. Mike Kaye of the Charlotte Observer reports that the Carolina Panthers never even made an offer on the 28-year-old cornerback who was released by Green Bay, and he is now on his way to Baltimore, signing a 1-year deal worth $4 million guaranteed and up to $6 million in potential earnings for the former Louisville standout. The Panthers didn't even make an offer, which I find is the main news in all this. And a lot of people in the Charlotte metro area alike are saying that this is because, well, Jaire Alexander wanted to go and reunite with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson and Alexander were actually roommates in college at Louisville, and no one was preventing this romance or bromance. And that's why the Panthers got cold feet or didn't even make an offer. I find that difficult to believe. I find it hard to believe that Alexander wasn't at least open to other offers. He just unequivocally wanted to go to Baltimore. Well, what if you doubled the offer? What if you gave him $8 million guaranteed? He's going to say no? A guy who's 28 years old has an opportunity to cash in the NFL. Careers are short. An injury can mean your career is over. You don't think he'd take $4 million, $2 million extra bucks? You're talking generational wealth. He'd say no. He'd really say no to more money because he wants to play with his buddy, Lamar Jackson, that bad? I find that hard to believe. And I find it equally annoying almost that the Panthers didn't even make an offer on Jaire Alexander. They couldn't have stepped up to the plate and gave him $6 million guaranteed. Well, per Adam Schefter, other teams made offers to the free agent corner. Schefter believed more teams were offering him more money than Baltimore was able to. Baltimore has a couple big salaries, and they were hard set 1 year, $4 million guaranteed. That's what you're getting, Jaire. Other teams reportedly offered him more, but he said no. I just wish in all this that the Panthers were in the category of teams that offered him more. Blow his socks off. Do it. I think we all would be a lot happier and more content with J.C. Horn and Jaire Alexander lining up side by side in 2025 on the Panthers defense, on a Giro Avero's unit. 2 stud corners. The Panthers did not make that offer. And you want to say the money didn't matter. Well, Landis Alexander, and this is how deep we are into this, folks. Landis Alexander, father of Jaire Alexander, was on ESPN Milwaukee. ESPN Milwaukee. You have to go in a spaceship just so the radio frequencies get into your car. That's how you turn on ESPN Milwaukee. Landis went on the radio and he said, I believe the way the contract was structured with Green Bay, they were setting it up with more incentives to make it more attractive to trade him. He believed that even if the Packers had signed Alexander, restructured his deal similar to what Baltimore gave him, they would have traded him. This was some of the conversations going on between the agents, Alexander's representatives, and the Packers, who were trying to restructure the deal, offered him something similar to Baltimore, but ultimately Alexander wanted out. Green Bay obviously wanted not to pay him $17 million, which was the original number. But Alexander wanted contract certainty. That is what Landis Alexander said. He wanted contract certainty. He wanted more guaranteed money, more of a chance to hit incentives. And I can't be told that his relationship with Lamar Jackson is so great that he would say no to $4 million, $5 million more. Like, seriously, you believe that? I don't believe that. And I don't know for sure why the Panthers were out. Did Alexander say, I'm not signing with Carolina unequivocally? I have this team making an offer and that team making an offer, and you guys aren't going to give me anything near that? I think it's somewhere between Alexander not wanting to play for the Panthers and the Panthers being not willing to offer him as much money as Baltimore, or rather, as other teams were offering. Still, if there was an opportunity to do it, I think they should have blown his socks off, give him big money Well, the Panthers didn't even make an offer on Jaire Alexander, and I think the odds of them making an offer on another veteran corner who they would actually have to trade for, it's equally low. Jalen Ramsey, another guy who should be on the move. Adam Schefter believes it is guaranteed that Jalen Ramsey will be on the move. Now, Schefter did say on the Pat McAfee Show that Ramsey would, quote-unquote, like to go to the West Coast, to Los Angeles. Ugh. Rams, Chargers, somewhere like that, said Schefter. And Schefter didn't make the grunts. That's my interpretation of the words. Ramsey would like to go to Los Angeles. Bleh. Bleh. Really? Why do you want to go to L.A.? Like, of all the places you could go, you can go to Windy City, Chicago, you go to New England. Not that the Patriots would trade for them, but there's cool places you can go. You go to Charlotte. Charlotte, up and coming. It's an awesome place. You can live in Uptown. You can do it. You don't want to live there, Jalen? You want to go to Los Angeles and be with a bunch of plastic Barbies? That's where you want to go? A bunch of Hollywood wannabes? That's where you want to go? L.A.? Ugh. Whatever. He wants to go there, but it's hard for the Miami Dolphins to trade Jalen Ramsey because he has $24.25 fully guaranteed in 2025. And it seems like the Dolphins don't want to pay this amount. They don't want to pay anything near that. But it's hard to find a trade partner. When Jaire Alexander is signing in Baltimore for 1 year, $4 million guaranteed. And I told you this like weeks ago. I said, it's going to be a 1 year deal. It's going to be low money. When Jaire Alexander is there for the picking, for all these teams, you think they're going to go and cough up $24 million guaranteed for Jalen Ramsey? So that's what's holding this up. And I think the odds of the Panthers getting Ramsey are very low at this point. I think they're infinitesimal odds the Panthers land Jalen Ramsey, just because I don't think Miami and Carolina are going to be on the same page in any world. This is a front office that is pinching pennies. Dan Morgan and co. are pinching pennies. You think they're going to go and even pay remotely close to $24 million guaranteed? Absolutely not. They're not going to want to give up draft compensation, which I actually side with them on. I don't see the Dolphins coming down $20 million, saying we'll pay the majority of this contract. Just take them off our hands. I think Miami is a team that is in a soft rebuild. And I think they need to trade the corner, but I don't think they're desperate completely to the point where they're just going to eat this whole contract. And I don't see Dan Morgan using Dad's money, using David Tepper's money to go and pay Jalen Ramsey whatever large sum of money he would have to pay him in 2025. Probably going to be significantly more than the 1 year, $4 million guaranteed that Jaire Alexander got from Baltimore, to which Dan Morgan wasn't even interested in that. They didn't even make an offer. So until they add someone, it's going to be J.C. Horn and Mike Jackson Sr. outside. I'm comfortable with Horn. I think, in the words of Kelly Clarkson, he broke away. I think the injuries that have plagued him in the past are a thing of the past. Mike Jackson, I mean, early reports in minicamp and OTAs, he's getting burned already. I personally don't have faith in him as your cornerback too. I actually have a lot more faith in Chow Smith-Wade, who J.C. Horn says is the best, most impressive player during OTAs, during minicamp. That's the guy that I'm hitching my wagon to step up in the secondary over Damani Richardson, over Lathan Ransom, over Mike Jackson Jr., Sr. It's Chow Smith-Wade and J.C. Horn, and I still think they need to plug someone else in there. And it's going to be slimmer pickings. Like, there are some free agents still out there. I looked it up. Rasul Douglas. He's a name. He's just 30 years old. Proven commodity. Good starting caliber corner. You could add him to the room. Much like he added Peanut Tillman back in 2015. Tillman was older at that time. He was in mid-30s. But he was a highly productive corner. The Panthers took a leap of faith on him. He had an impressive regular season, got injured for the postseason, but was a guy that gave you good reps alongside Josh Norman and co. I think they're going to do something similar this year. I think Canales and Morgan have no worries about what's going to be available in free agency. They see guys like Rasul Douglas, Justin Simmons, Julian Blackmon sitting out there, and they say, you know what? We'll let Baltimore flirt with Jaire Alexander. We've gotten burned in the past bringing in veterans who aren't bought into our culture, so we'll let him go to Baltimore where we know Alexander's going to buy in immediately. Jalen Ramsey, the money, I don't want to pay $24 million guaranteed or whatever sum of money the Panthers would need to pay. That's what the front office is saying. And I think Canales, who has said, and I believe Mike Kaye had the report that the Panthers plan on adding someone in the secondary. They plan on doing something. And I think the question is when. And I think when just going to keep getting pushed out. It's like when you come home from work and you have that lingering task. Like, you always wanted to start playing chess online and you just never did it. And you just push it next day. We'll do it Thursday. We'll do it Friday. We'll do it a month from now. We'll do it 2 months from now. Yeah, we'll do it in August. We'll do it in late September. Yeah, we'll just do it. We'll do it then. We'll do it then. You just keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. That's what the Panthers are doing in free agency right now. I think they eventually plan on getting someone per reports. They're not going to overspend. It's probably not going to be who you want. It's going to be a corner in his mid-30s. It's going to be one of these guys that gets released from another team. Someone like Rasul Douglas, who's already out there. But someone like that, because they just, I hate to put it this way, but it's true. They just need a body. They just need a body out there. Could the Panthers be moving on from veterans? Guys on the roster they could be moving on from have been flirted around in trade rumors. We have that and more. Congratulations on unplugging from the Carolina Panthers matrix. This is the tone, guiding you through the Carolina Panthers propaganda machine. The tone. Tomorrow's future today. That is this stage of the NFL offseason. It's before the highs of training camp, and it's right after the highs of minicamp and OTAs. A lot of guys who could be on the block in the regular season or in the preseason even as roster cuts, their names get thrown around this time of year. One name from Carolina is getting thrown around, and I'm very upset to hear it. So Matt Kaboly, correspondent to the Pat McAfee Show, says the Steelers are looking for wide receiver depth. And it is floated around, the Panthers could be a partner. The Panthers could trade Adam Thielen to the Steelers. Obviously, Steelers general manager Omar Khan is familiar with Dan Morgan. They did business last year, just about a year ago, when the Steelers traded Deontay Johnson for Dante Jackson, the Panthers corner. David Latham of Last Word on Sports has this. The Carolina Panthers have a series of talented yet unproven young playmakers. In first-round pick Tetairoa McMillan, Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, and tight end Jatavian Sanders. There could be too many mouths to feed if these players develop as anticipated, which could make Adam Thielen somewhat expendable. The aging Thielen is likely in the last season of his career and would probably prefer to play on a team with realistic odds of a deep playoff run. Now, no evidence on that last part. Thielen is a consummate company man. He is the beacon of public relations. This guy says everything the Panthers want him to say. Defends the quarterback. Even last year, he did the same thing. Tries to galvanize the hopes of the fan base. Despite being visibly frustrated at points last year, early in the season, never said anything wrong to the media. unlike Deontay Johnson, Thielen is a company man. He's a guy that the Panthers have a lot of confidence in. Again, Thielen, more than anyone, over the past couple of seasons, has been consistent. 27 games over the past 2 years, 6 catches on average for 60 yards in games in which he's played, 9 touchdowns in those 27 games. And per Pro Football Focus, he was wide receiver 21 across the league over the last 7 weeks. And he averaged 15.3 PPR fantasy points. If you care about that, that's your thing. In 4 of his last 7 games, he scored at least 15.3 fantasy points. Fantasy points, yards, tangible evidence, whatever you want. This guy is productive. He's been more productive than any player, really, on the Panthers over the past couple of seasons. I mean, starting 2023 week 1 to the end of last season, name me a Carolina Panther that's been more productive than Adam Thielen. Xavier Woods, maybe? Taylor Moton? Could you include him in the conversation? It's definitely not a Kemekwana. I don't know, like, Thielen is the guy that has been consistent for you. And I think trading him is a bad decision. It's a very bad decision. He's been Bryce Young's number 1 target since Bryce Young has come into the league. Bryce Young has a lot of confidence in him. And you could see it, especially late in the season during that final stretch where Bryce Young was impressive. A lot of that was hitched on the wagon of Adam Thielen. I'm hitching my wagon to Adam Thielen in 2025. I mean, some people are literally saying it's so polarizing. It's so freaking polarizing this time of year. Some people are saying that Thielen could be the wide receiver 1. I think Tetairoa McMillan has that job in a runaway. I think by far he is the Panthers wide receiver 1. But I think in the slot, in terms of production, would not surprise me if Thielen is on pace for a 1,000-yard season. That wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think dumping him to Pittsburgh, who might need a receiver, I think, in fact, they do really need a wide receiver. They don't have anyone besides Metcalf. And I love the tight end, Freiermuth. Go Nittany Lions. Penn State's your team. They need a wide receiver. Thielen could be a great fit, but he's not leaving. You're not taking Adam Thielen, Pittsburgh. You're not taking him. I will die on that hill. No one is taking Adam Thielen. It would be criminal for the Panthers to move on from Adam Thielen. He's your most productive receiver over the past 2 seasons. Keep Thielen. I got a Thielen. Adam Thielen is going to be the wide receiver 2 in 2025, 2026. This is another contentious veteran. And I saw this report and I threw up in my mouth. Lou Scattaglia from NFL Spin Zone is not entirely convinced that Robert Hunt's contract was good. In fact, Scattaglia, that's a great last name, considers Robert Hunt to be a player the Panthers might consider moving on from. He signed a big deal for a giant price of $20 million per year, writes Scattaglia. But he really wasn't all that great for the Panthers. I disagree with that. I think Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis completely changed the trajectory of this team. I think if you threw Bryce Young behind the same line, or a line that was similar to the offensive line in 2023, you wouldn't have been setting up the quarterback to fail. I would argue Canales wouldn't even be here because the product would have been so horrid in 2024 if you didn't have Robert Hunt, if you didn't have Damian Lewis. Offensive line was consistent. Yeah, sure, there were some sacks in there, there's some struggles. Every offensive line struggles. The offensive line is silent and should only be seen, or the offensive line, if seen, it's a bad thing. It's like children should be seen but not heard. When the offensive line is heard, when they're talking about the offensive line, it's only a bad thing. It's only a bad thing. And the Panthers' offensive line did not get enough credit for last season. Chuba had almost 1,200 yards on the ground. You can consistently run the ball. They protected Bryce Young. Bryce Young was able to grow in to his evolved form. Bryce Young took the step away. So he's on the stairs. He's on like floor 1 with Zach Wilson and freaking, someone mentioned in a coffee shop today, Zach Mettenberger. Remember him? Big arm. All the talent in the world. He's on floor 1 with all these draft busts. He took the step forward, away from Zach Wilson, away from Blaine Gabbert, away from first-round busts, and boosted himself because of the offensive line. In fact, I think Robert Hunt was the most underrated signing in free agency all of last year. Dan Morgan deserves an A+ on the report card, an A+ on the test. He brings that home to his parents because he signed Robert Hunt. I don't believe that he's a guy the Panthers might move on from, and he wasn't all that great, writes Lou Scattaglia. I disagree with that. I think if any of the linemen is on the chopping block, it's Taylor Moton. And I think they'll keep Taylor Moton through 2025, unless they're really cutting back in Carolina. Unless there's some serious budget cuts, like Tepper's stock portfolio isn't performing well, and they're like, all right, I'm not paying you $31 million, Taylor Moton. You know, you can never predict that, but I don't think they're moving on from him. I think they're content paying Taylor Moton $30 million. I think this offensive line, I think most players on the offense have job security. Guys like Hunter Renfrow might not make the roster, but most of these guys have job security, especially across the offensive line. The front office made leaps and bounds to keep this unit together. Gave Christensen a 1-year deal, brought back Austin Corbett on a team-friendly deal. They have made strides to keep this unit together in 2025. Ian Thomas, oh my gosh, this was the funniest article. Cat Crave, Dean Jones writes, Ian Thomas has been impressive in Las Vegas. Dean, headline, Panthers fans watching draft bust, Ian Thomas, fool another team is comedy gold. It sounds depressingly familiar as Ian Thomas instills false offseason hope in the Las Vegas Raiders. Chip Kelly, of all people. Back in the NFL, the offensive coordinator for the Vegas Raiders had this to say on Ian Thomas, former Panthers tight end. I checked. You can play with 2 tight ends in a game at the same time. And sometime you can play with 3 tight ends, they told me. That's what Chip Kelly said. Talking about putting Ian Thomas in the offense in the regular season. Because they have Brock Bowers, superstar. Have Michael Mayer, a guy who shined at times. I think he was hurt a lot of last season, but a guy who has shown he has some ability. The tight end from Notre Dame. Ian Thomas is another guy. Chip Kelly says, Ian Thomas has been outstanding, and he's the guy that's played a lot of snaps in this league, too. I don't know why I read Chip Kelly's voice like a barbarian, but what he did at the tail end in Philadelphia was barbaric, and that's why I find this to be, like Dean Jones, comedic gold. Remember that guy just trading away everyone in Philadelphia at the end? Traded away LaShawn McCoy, Nick Foles, was booed out of Philly, was fired with 1 game left in the regular season. And he did have some impressive feats met in Philadelphia. I believe he had a 12-4 season in there. Did have some solid achievement at the NFL level, but then, oh my gosh, the personnel decisions just got really bad in Philadelphia at the end with Chip Kelly Forgot the exact trade with Buffalo, but he got rid of LaShawn McCoy, superstar, got rid of Nick Foles. And now, when evaluating talent, he seems to think Ian Thomas is a bona fide tight end who deserves to be in the lineup in some capacity. Unbelievable. Vegas, it's optimistic because Vegas is perpetually hungover. You wake up a worse version of yourself when you're in Vegas, and that's how the Raiders are and how they have been. The Raiders are taking the Panthers' trash. The castaways from Carolina are going to Vegas and having shots at a chance at the NFL. It's unbelievable. Doesn't that make you feel good? We're going to end on a high note. The Panthers are at a place with the roster where now the Vegas Raiders are taking your castaways. It's not last year, Dan Morgan talking about roster churn, which was code for the Panthers are dependent on the waiver wire and need to take other teams' castaways. It's no, the Panthers are sending their castaways to Vegas. Have Terrace Marshall Jr. You can take Ian Thomas, and you can be fooled by him. And Chip Kelly, your offensive coordinator, can literally go in front of the microphone and say that he wants to get Thomas on the field. That's it for this segment. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is The Tone. I know I'm posting with less frequency, and I'm doing that because I'm trying to evolve. I'm putting a lot into this show. I'm going to take it to infinity and beyond. It's sort of like a rocket. You don't just get it in space overnight. But have patience. I'm going to continue blasting these shows out, and then we're going to have the rocket, and we're all going to get aboard it, and we're going to go into space, infinity and beyond. This is The Tone. Thank you so much for tuning in.